I'm just thinking of a book title that would be really great called Awaken Your Internal Middle Finger.
Cryptocurrencies are not taxable when you are exchanging between assets.
The reason for that is that dollars are taxable, not the coins. Is gold taxable? Everybody quickly says, Is your real estate taxable? So can you send that in payment for the tax?
No.
Of course not, so therefore it's not taxable. But that's how our system is. Our system taxes dollars. So if you dispose of property where the beneficial interests change, that is the definition that the IRS has for gain. And yeah, you're fair game, it's taxable then.
Read my lips. Break your spell.
Decentralized, got to realize, don't decarbonize. Decentralized, decentralized.
Welcome to today's episode of Decentralized TV here on Brighteon.com. And today we have a very special guest, a very energetic guest who's going to help you deal with all kinds of problems having to do with assets and money and privacy and IRS and everything else. I mean, it's going to be really great. And of course, Todd Pittner, my co-host, joins me today. Welcome, Todd. Great to see you again.
It is always great to see you. And I am so excited about our guest. You know, I have a lot of history with him that we'll unpack during the interview, but we've interviewed him before, but it's been a long time since we did, and so much in this world has changed.
Oh, man, I don't even recognize the world from what it was a couple years ago. Everything's changed, including about money and crypto and finance and privacy and everything else. All right. Are you ready, Todd, to bring in our guest?
I am, Mike. I can't wait. I've been waiting for this all week.
Okay. Let's bring him in. John J. Singleton from aceofcoins.com. Welcome, John J. Singleton. Great to have you back. And the whole world has changed since we spoke with you last.
It has, yes. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, I reached out to you, Mike, and I'm like, we need to get John J. back on because the whole world has changed.
No kidding.
And one of the things that has changed is that Bitcoin, I think when we first interviewed John way back when, a couple of years ago, Bitcoin was like sub $20,000. And so now it's a lot more. So people are taking some money off of the table, or they're exchanging it for other assets or and such. And I felt it really, really important to get John J. on to, everybody, read my lips, break your spell. Cryptocurrencies are not taxable when you are exchanging between assets. And I really wanted you on, John, to unpack that for everyone, to let them know why. And then the other thing that's really freaking cool is you have connected with the IRS no less than 22 times to engage with them, and they have affirmed each time that you're right. But nobody knows about this, John.
No,
Yeah,
it's a
take
secret.
it away.
No, I figured if I'm going to be talking about this and I'm not an accountant, I don't have credentials like your CPA or accountant, who's not going to agree with me, by the way, let me just ask the IRS. So I asked the IRS how to ask the IRS in a formal letter of determination. Okay, so the IRS takes a legal determination or a conclusion and either agrees or disagrees with it. That's the process. So I asked him, how is there a tax liability in this situation? The situation being, I put some money in an exchange, I bought some coins, then I traded them for some other coins and other coins and other coins, and a year later, it's worth a lot more because I'm smart. Do I have a tax liability? The IRS says no.
Only if you sell the coins for fiat currency, then you have a taxable event, or?
Exactly, and the reason for that is that dollars are taxable, not the coins.
Unpack that, please.
Okay, so is gold taxable? Everybody quickly says, Is your real estate taxable? So can you send that in payment for the tax?
No.
Of course not. So therefore, it's not taxable. The sale of it is.
Okay.
It sounds kind of nitpicky, but that's how our system is. Our system taxes dollars. So if you dispose of property where the beneficial interests change, that is the definition that the IRS has for gain. And yeah, you're fair game. It's taxable then.
So you're saying to me that when they enact, and I believe they will at some point in time, like, can't remember, Mike, was it France or Germany did taxed the unrealized gains for like a short while on crypto for like a minute. I think they beat it back, but it was like a small percentage. It's just like, don't worry about it. It's only 1.5%. But that unrealized gain is not converting it to fiat. So when they do pull that card out, does everyone need to be shaking in their boots and getting the right software so that they can report to their rock star CPAs on how much tax that they owe from self-reporting? What do you say, John?
I love this term, unrealized gain. Let's just start with that one.
Yeah,
what the heck? What is that? How do you take the definition the IRS has saying that you realize a gain that's taxable, and then you say there's such a thing as an unrealized gain? How do you do that?
Well, I say I have unrealized losses because of currency debasement.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, I want to file for a refund of everything because they already stole my money by printing currency.
Right. I also want tax deductions for thoughts I've had.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so
well, Enron used to do that actually.
That is true.
Yeah,
that is true. Yes. So, but anyways, no, there's no such thing as an unrealized gain. Now, the Supreme Court, and forgive me if I don't remember the citation, but the Supreme Court had a chance to make some discussion on the issue of unrealized gain in a related case, and made a ruling on this case. And on the matter of whether or not there's an unrealized gain, the Supreme Court deliberately passed upon that. Didn't want to touch it.
Don't blame them.
Why would you? The tax system is solid. You can't. It's perfect the way it is. The tax code is. I know it's a quagmire, but there's nothing wrong with it. Why would you have a Supreme Court rule that starts talking about unrealized gain? Let people get confused in the news and follow Googling things on the internet, and let them make their own decisions at their own peril, which is what's going on right now because they're all afraid.
John, what I'm hearing from you, and because I help people acquire these UNAs, a lot of times they do their own research before coming in with, and they have predisposed opinions. Is ChatGPT not your Lord and Savior on qualified right information when it comes to?
Be very careful with that, because what I find is that people are using the ChatGPT, like the AI applications, they're using it for asking conclusory questions. That is, instead of advising the AI with proper set of facts,
yes,
and then driving it toward legal authority and citations and things of this nature so that it understands what you're asking, and then asking it for a legal conclusion, people don't know what the law is, so they're asking the AI for the law, and the AI many times is wrong. So
right.
You can't just go there and say, is my income taxable? You'll never get the right answer.
Right.
That's about being a successful prompt engineer, right, Mike?
Well, 100%. And I'll tell you, Todd, too, the next edition of our free AI engine at Brighteon.ai is trained on UNA material.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's only, I guess, about 2 weeks away now before that's rolled out. And of course, it's trained on all our interviews, John. And this one will go into it in another month or so. But let me ask you this question about, since Trump became president, the SEC has really backed off of its pressure to try to say that all crypto were securities. Can you help us unpack sort of where things are with that stance?
Well, there's a definition of securities, I believe. I believe much of it is defined by the Supreme Court. I don't know the exact wording, but I believe in the actual statute, the Securities and Exchange Act of 1934. I don't believe you have a specific definition. I think they relied upon the courts to create it. But of course, the SEC wants to be the regulatory body above and beyond the Treasury or the IRS or FinCEN. Everybody wants a piece of it, right? Everybody wants to be able to tell everybody else what to do. So of course they're going to try to, define it as a security. Sometimes it is by the way it's used. Not Bitcoin, but I mean, some of the coins could be in that classification.
Okay, but they're no longer driving hard to try to prosecute everybody who's selling crypto to say, oh, you're an unregistered securities agent.
Right, and I think there's more to it than just trying to police securities. I think it was about destroying new applications that would, undermine or, do something that's fair for people. Let's have just accounting. No, we can't have that. We want the old system, So I think that's what was used for.
So was what you referred to prior, was that the Howey test? I think that was the Howey test to determine if something is a security or not.
Right. We could use that. Sure.
And it had like 5 pillars to it.
5 criteria. Right.
John, can you, I've had several people come into UNA consultations and they're wanting to know that they're up big in their crypto and they'd like to keep more of what they earned, right? And there are ways to do that. But many of them have forever, they have been engaged with this software that has tracked every single trade of theirs, and they have been paying taxes like good little sheep. And forgive me those who, you know, if you've come in, I'm not being degrading, but like good little sheep. And they've been paying their taxes on the exchanging of crypto assets. Does that put them on the hamster wheel to where they are then in contract with the IRS when if they never would have done that, they never would have had to? What do you say?
I love how you got sheep and hamsters into that question. It's like, can I have an armadillo? You know?
Yeah, really.
But go ahead.
Really. So you can correct it. I've had many clients that have come in and they're following their accountant's advice. And I should tell you that your accountant's advice, even though erroneous, actually, maybe I shouldn't say it's erroneous. You can actually do those things. Once you do it, though, it is correct. You don't have to do it that way. Okay, so trading coins between coins when you're still the same owner is not a disposition of property or assets that would constitute a gain. If you're going to report it that way, the IRS will agree with you and you'll be correct, but you don't have to report it that way.
And if people want to be able to read up a little bit more of that, they could go to your website, aceofcoins.com. You've written a nice article on that.
You can see, right, there are many articles at aceofcoins.com. You can also go right to the source, go right to the IRS circular. I think it's 519 on what constitutes a gain. The IRS itself will tell you. Just follow that instead of Googling things on the internet. You're going to get all kinds of what you'll find is professionals like lawyers and accountants trying to scare you, give you information that's useless. So you'll just give up and say, okay, tell me what to do.
So why did they ever enact that? Why did they ever say that you had to? Why did the IRS, where somebody
It's true. It's correct. Gains are taxable. The question is, do I have a gain when I trade coin for coin? I'm not trading coin for coin. Here's a couple things. This is why I got the IRS to agree with me. I explained to the IRS, the owner of the coin, when I'm on an exchange, is the coin is the exchange. This is the nature of the software. You can't get around it.
Okay.
So when you take dollars and you put it on the exchange, okay, you got your bank account, you move money to, let's say, Coinbase, and then you allocate into your coins. Coinbase must take ownership of the private keys. You'll see this yourself. If you go look, you'll see that you cannot get the private keys.
Right.
This makes Coinbase the trustee of your money.
Yep.
Now, when you can decide whatever you want to do. You're the beneficiary. You can move the coins all around. What Coinbase has done is has really nice software that's overlay above the blockchain, and it's quickly moving the pointers around for all your coins. But you're not actually disposing of the coins. You're just moving around pointers so that when you do settle out, when you do, let's say, for example, sell back to Coinbase, whatever you have in your database, it will then convert it. Then it will be on the blockchain, and then you'll get dollars, and then you'll have a tax liability, but not until. So all this software they're using, where people are trading coins for coins all the time, all the software is erroneous. The only thing that's valid is when you take dollars and put it into coins, and then whatever you do in the middle is a black box. Nobody should care.
Bingo.
When you dispose of all or some of those coins for dollars, then that 1099 is accurate. Could be.
Could be.
I've never even heard of this software, and obviously I've never used such software. I mean, the idea seems absurd to me. But what software are you talking about?
It goes by different names. I forget now. I just tell people whatever software it is, it's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, who puts this out? Where are people getting this software?
I have to wonder. About that one.
It's software that says you owe the IRS more money.
Yeah, it's just the fear point. It's what the IRS does. Just like those BS 87,000 agents that they never hired, but they said they did, and then everybody went, oh, that means we're going to be audited because there's so many. They didn't hire those people. They didn't hire that many people. And
they didn't tell you they were letting 52,000 go in the 10-year period also. So it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, yeah. So they control us by fear, and so I believe this strategy, this software strategy, was just that. It was just planning it, and they were saying, let's see how many how many people, really nice, smart people, are going to fall for this.
Well,
it's all to get you to do something against your interest.
The
So
IRS.
it's a way to
The way I understand how the IRS actually operates is almost everything is self-admission of liability, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. I mean, when you fill out a 1040, you're admitting this is how much I owe, and then you put a signature next to it. The IRS is like, thank you for saying you owe us that.
I'll tell you right now, I've got a proceeding I'm doing right now. Just as one example, I've got many of these, but one's in Ohio, and we had the state of Ohio being represented by one person, and also being the hearing officer in the matter. And my client had filed a tax return for the state. Now, it's not the Fed, but the state. This goes to show you what's going on. This is the same for the Fed and the state. So the tax return showed that he owed $20,000. So I represented him at the hearing, and I asked the officer, I said, look, my client gave me all the money to pay you. He has no problem with it. But before I release the funds, I have a duty to my client. I need to see the bill. And the hearing officer said, well, what do you mean? He filed the return and he owed $20,000. I said, I understand, no problem. I don't dispute that. I'm wanting to see the assessment that was made by your office. You're required by law to assess the tax liability. My client is entitled to see the type, kind, or class of tax for which he's being held liable. And I want to see it too before I release the funds, because he trusts me with his money. And so the hearing officer directed me back to the tax return. And I said, okay, so when was the tax liability incurred? Before he filed or after he filed? And he couldn't answer me because he didn't do his job and assess the tax. And that's where we are. They can't go forward because
it's all self-reporting.
Yes. You just do it and go along with it, and then they don't do their job. There's no assessment, which some people go, that's kind of, nitpicking. I say, well, okay, look, if I have, let's say I go to a restaurant and I order food, okay? And the waitress comes out and says, that'll be $200. Has anyone ever done that in a restaurant you went to? I mean, maybe not. And what would you say? Can I see the bill, please? Not that I don't trust you. I just would like to see the bill, So if I go to the IRS or the state and the state says, hey, you owe this money, I'm going to say, can I see the bill? Can I see the bill that makes you accountable to me if you made a mistake? How do I know if you didn't make a mistake if you don't give me the bill?
Well, and very often, even when you pay the IRS, this has happened to our company, then a few months later, the IRS will come back and say, well, we think you owe $47 more.
Yeah.
And then my question is, well, how did you arrive at that?
Right.
And if you think I owe $47 more, then surely you must have a reason for the other $50,000 or whatever I paid before the 47. So where's that? Where's that assessment?
That's why I never just pay a debt collector or a creditor without terms. If you want money from me, it better settle. We're settled. If I pay you, you're done. You're not going to come back later. And same with the IRS. They will do this if you make them. But you see, a lot of times accountants don't do this. They're too lazy or they don't know. Or lawyers, because it creates more money for them if it's messy. But for my clients, I make sure.
They hate it. Okay, John, you just mentioned a couple of times, many times, clients. So tell me, who are your clients? And by the way, I'm going to self-report here. I was one of John when I sued Costco, 3-count lawsuit for the mask thing. And I was introduced to him, and he is a legend with all of that. I mean, just amazing. So thank you for representing me on that, John, or I'm more aptly self-represented, but you told me exactly what to do and how to do it.
Sure. Right? Appreciate that. Yeah. And thanks for asking. So the person I work with is someone who's dealing with money, property rights, but specifically these days, the latest thing is cryptocurrency. It could be real estate, it could be stock, it could be business cash flow, things like that. So I will restructure them in a way that avoids certain financial risk. A lot of it has to do with taxes. I mean, a lot of people are crazy. They're screaming about, oh no, we have this new 1099 DA. Oh no, the Genius Act. Is that going to create a tax liability? Are stable coins going to be taxable? And these are the new questions I'm getting. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, I answer those, but then I look at the client situation and I educate them. Like, for example, a lot of people say, I have a problem with opening up, an account at Coinbase because the Coinbase wants my driver's license and my SSN and my mom's maiden name and all this information, and they're afraid that. And again, it's another way to intimidate people. So if the potential customer is being asked for all this information, which is kind of uncomfortable to give up, don't you think, as the account holder, you're thinking, gosh, I better do what everybody else is doing and file a return and whatever they're telling me, I should do it because they got all this information on me. And what people don't realize is that none of that creates a tax liability. You could give all the KYC that you're asked, and none of it is going to create a tax liability. So when I structure for my client, which it's a person who's running a business or has a windfall, maybe it might be a client that has $30 million. It might be somebody who just has a regular job. But we're dealing with property and property rights, and so I restructure it or structure it in such a way that he can manage or avoid legally tax implications. Like, for example, let's say I've got a client that wants to dispose of or liquidate, let's say $20 million in cryptos. I've got some of those clients. So part of his problem is that's very easy to do that when I structure it. The problem is on the allocation side of it. So I can take him out of cryptos and put him in gold and cash or whatever he wants. But then what? Because the longer you stay in cash, the faster you're going to lose money.
Yep.
So I have to allocate him into assets. So that's the other side of it is once I get the initial risk of my client that he's identified when I talk to him, I then get into an allocation process or an allocation plan. So my client is a person like that.
That's beautiful. So, and you and I have had some sidebar conversations on marrying your expertise with when somebody has a UNA, and we got talking earlier about settled funds. Can you unpack that? Because that is very important and very powerful, and everybody should know about it.
Well, when you have settled funds, the IRS cares. Settled funds means it's money for which the IRS would conclude that you owe a tax on it. Okay, so I can have money, I can receive money that's reported to the IRS, and the IRS doesn't care. This is unsettled funds. But when I have settled funds, that means a taxpayer, someone who's filed returns, has a particular tax treatment, receives money and or an income report. I always assume it's a report, like a 1099. That's going to be settled funds. The IRS is going to, if you don't file a return, the IRS is going to say, hey, what about our cut? So I make it to where, for example, there's two ways, like you mentioned the UNA. So I like those for the long-term, like the heirloom type trust organizations for family wealth. I like the UNAs for that. I like the LLCs for the front end, dealing with business on a day-to-day routine, because part of my assessment of a client's risk is to avoid the cost of litigation, and I can do that very easily with an LLC. I cannot do it that easily with a C Corp or an S Corp. Well, an S Corp I can, but a C Corp's a little bit different because you have all the other interests. But the LLC is a great tool for that. So there's a couple ways I do it. One is retitling the property and disposing of the property can avoid the tax liability. That's number one. We can unpack that. And then number two is retitling the property and disposing of it outside of my estate. That's the more. You could do it with a UNA, yes. You can do it with a UNA. You can do it both ways, actually.
Yep.
So right. Those are the two tools I use, and I use them all.
What I want to share is that when we do this, there's a difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance. And tax avoidance, I joke, should be a sport, right? I mean, we should all get really good at that. And it means there's nothing unlawful of what we're doing. We're just using their rails and their rules. Am I right?
For many years, I would restructure and rescue a business that was being destroyed by the IRS, because the IRS doesn't have a conscience, right? If your business, if you're running a dental office and you didn't pay or you owe lots of money, the IRS doesn't care how much. They'll just take everything, and they don't care if that ruins your business. Like, you can't pay the employees. It doesn't care. So I learned how to do this in the 90s, where I would restructure the cash flow. I would change where it's going. It's not going to my client's S Corp anymore. He's the dentist. It's now going to a new LLC structure I created, and the ownership, I set it up depending on what his situation is, but I literally take the money away from the IRS so the IRS can actually see what I did. Now, before, the IRS is garnishing $30,000 a month from the client.
Right.
Now they're taking zero. Do you think they care? Heck yeah, they want to know what the heck happened.
Right.
So next thing I get is a letter from my client. He's saying, look, the IRS wants to meet with me. And I say, great, I'll represent you. So we go to a meeting with the IRS. I show them everything I just did. Yep, I took the money away. Now what? Let's work out a deal. And they're so nice after that. But they never attack what I did because it was all legal and it's all disclosed and there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
And so now I get my client a way better deal if there's a deal at all, because sometimes the IRS itself will come back and say, you know what? We think we are taking too much money. I'm not lying, guys. I'm going to tell you, the IRS will do this if you know how to talk to them. We think we're taking too much money. We'll check back with you in 6 months. If you know how to present it. So we can use tools for that, or sometimes not. I mean, but it's helpful to have the tools so that I can move the property rights, the thing that was being taken or the risk, I can move it away from where the risk is. So if I personally have let's say a debt obligation, I would just remove property away from my name, property that I care about. I remove it out of my estate. I use LLCs for that.
Yep. Nelson Rockefeller coined the phrase, nothing, control everything. And this
That's
is
the
what
idea.
he's talking about. There
That's
are
right.
many different ways to skin that cat.
So-
But the bottom line is you want to get as much of your personal property out from under your Social Security number, and into other protected assets that you control.
Yeah, that's right.
Let me jump in here real quick. I mean, this is really fascinating, what you're covering. But right now we are in, I believe, an asset bubble in many areas, such as real estate and maybe crypto, who knows, or maybe crypto's got a lot more upside. Gold and silver are skyrocketing, probably still have more upside. But clearly some areas like the stock market, there may be an AI stock bubble right now, right? So how does your information also help people to cash out of high valuation assets if they want to take profits while legally minimizing their tax burden?
Well, I allow them I enable them to move money away from their investment. So where they're holding in cryptos, for example, they want to liquidate into dollars. A lot of times, if you do so much at one time, it's high risk because you're going to have a huge capital gains tax. So when I structure a client, he's able to liquidate and legally not have the capital gains tax because the way it's being treated is deferred. The tax liability is still there, but it's being deferred. And so we're able to then go put that money somewhere else. We can then get into what I talk about, allocate that money somewhere else. And yeah, we can still take some of it to go buy a car and things like that, but we can allocate that money and avoid the capital gains tax. We could do this with real estate, stock, cryptos, gold. Whenever you're doing a large transaction and you can't just dollar cost average your way in or out, this is what I do. I structure it this way to get tax deferment.
So you are avoiding settled funds.
Yes, that's the whole idea. So I'm moving money around and it doesn't settle until I want it to settle.
Right.
Wow. Well, I think there's going to be a lot of people who are interested in talking with you about this because of the situation we're dealing with right now. Again, people have a lot of money in stocks, but they might realize, hey, this party's not going to last forever. What I really need to do is buy this farmland away from the city and go live out there. So, but I got to get out of of owning NVIDIA stock or whatever people own without taking this massive tax burden. So you can help people even with that kind of translation, stocks to land?
That's right. I could do any transaction that people need, the normal transaction, nothing special there. That's funny because people are they're so afraid of they're glad that they have a gain, high value change, right? And then they realize, I might have this tax liability because they don't know how to handle it. So who do they call? An accountant who's going to show them how to incur the tax liability.
Yes.
I mean, you could do it that way, and then you're just set back further, okay? So you don't have access to all your gains. Why not just take 100% of your gains like you would in a 1031 or something, or an exempt transaction? Mine aren't exempt, by the way. I don't use exemptions. I just move the transaction around in a way that does not create a taxable gain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, John, you also often self-identify as a very, very good lawyer. And I'm just really curious because you're not a lawyer, you're not an accountant, but you have one of the most amazing legal minds that I have ever met. How did you get involved in doing this? What led you to self-educating? And then I think you told me at one point in time you've helped people file like over 20,000 different lawsuits or something.
There's a lot of that. But no, in the 90s, I had credit card debt. I was a stupid college kid, and I thought credit cards were free money. So I used it accordingly, and I realized I couldn't pay one day. And I got to thinking, what's going to happen if I don't pay? I wasn't afraid. I just wanted to go talk to people that were in the industry. So the more people I talked to, the more angry I became because I realized this is a big racket. And yeah, I did owe the money. That wasn't the problem, is that the whole thing was such a racket. And then I realized a couple of years after that they're just making up the money to start with. They didn't even risk anything. It's not like I borrowed money from my grandmother, and when I found that, I just was so angry. But one day I remember I was doing my research and I'm in college and I'm taking my time off when I'm not in class or at work. I'm sitting in the courtroom and I'm watching these lawyers do debt collections. Like, for example, Capital One in there with like 50 cases, and the lawyer would call it 50 cases and nobody would show up. And the judge would issue what I didn't know at the time was a default award. I didn't know what that was. And so I went and asked the clerk and she said, "Oh, you have to go look at the rules." And I said, "What's that?" And I started reading the rules and I thought, these guys are a bunch of hacks. They can't even speak. And I figured, heck, if I could just read the rules, I know exactly. So I figured my first understanding was these guys are coming into court saying this person didn't pay his credit card bill. If it's me as the defendant, I thought if I just stood up and said, "I deny that allegation," what I discovered is makes them backtrack, and it costs thousands of dollars to overcome that. If you just simply put it in writing. I didn't know that until I started reading the rules, and I said, "Oh, I could have some fun with this." And so after a while, it comes out to where we get to a point now where when we write documents like that, the lawyers don't know what to do. Here's what they end up doing. It's way more sophisticated now. So what they'll do is they'll withdraw the case, and then they'll try another judge.
Wow.
This is how crooked the whole system is. And I'll give you an example real quick. So a client came earlier this year. He was getting sued by a debt collector. He was in state court. So we sued the law firm and the lawyer in federal court under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. They withdrew the state court case, settled in the federal court, paid him $3,000 to go away, and will never sue him again, and he's done with that debt. He doesn't owe him anything, and they gave him $3,000. It took him 6 months of paperwork, but I'm just saying, this is what it went from that day of, I could beat these hacks, to they're going to pay my client money,
Right. Well, what I hope everybody takes away here is, we want to help you keep way more of what you earn, but also if you ever find yourself in a bind, instead of just bending the knee to your nearest attorney, right? Go to aceofcoins.com and reach out to John J. Singleton, and maybe he can help you. I mean, can you share with everybody when this fake pandemic happened, John, and I engaged with you? You knew exactly how to write everything on my.
And that was before ChatGPT.
Exactly.
I did not use AI for that.
Yeah. But tell me why, because everybody should know that, I was a warrior. I did everything you said, and I was denied at initially. So we took it to appeal, and then it went to another appellate court. And they never responded back with anything that was lawfully based. It was just a hand wave, dismissing.
It was all about, you didn't fill out the form correctly. You didn't spell it right. You didn't say it the way we say it. That's all they wanted to talk about. Because when you deal with such an important issue, the only reason they started this fake pandemic was to force people or persuade them into accepting new technology and surveillance and all this stuff, and be afraid and submit to medical treatments that will ultimately harm them. And so you can't, when they did this, you have to think to yourself, okay, in order for these creatures to do this, they have to already understand there's people like us that'll fight them. And they already got that figured out. They already got our court system that's going to go along with it. So the court system, like I handle over 100 cases like yours, over 100 of employment situations and whatnot. And it came down to like a dozen maybe or 20 where we took them to the Supreme Court. And in the appeals court, all the districts and the Supreme Court said, we don't think it's plausible that this is going on. We don't understand what you're saying. That's essentially what the response was from the whole, not just the employer, but the court.
Right.
They can't let it out. So for example, I did a fraud case against one of the hospitals, and the judge wouldn't even make a findings of his decision. He just said dismissed. Because I accused him of negligence, because I said, here's the premise of I'll just tell you guys real quick. Yeah. So the argument I made was, since when in human history and since when in modern science has it been necessary for one person to undergo a medical treatment for the protection of another? Mm-hmm. And that right there will kill you. I mean, if you're a doctor and you're promoting this, you're a quack. And they knew that. So that's another example. So how in the world can Costco, who's a big player, say, you know what, Todd, you're right. I'm sorry. Come on in. You don't have to wear a mask. They just can't do it. They have to continue the con. Once you start the con, you can't stop.
Yeah,
But we did stop them.
What they did is they said, Judge, there's no grounds for the case anymore because we changed our policy.
Yes.
Guess what we asked for in the complaint? Change your policy.
Yep.
They act like they won.
Right.
So
That's what we wanted.
So John, I may need to contact you to get your help on this. But our audience will appreciate this. So many months ago, we made a substantial wire to the IRS. My company did, and the bank transfer, the bank wire went through. It's a major mainstream bank. The IRS then months later sent us a letter and said they never got the wire.
No.
And the bank says, well, we sent it and your money's gone. And the IRS got it, but the IRS said we didn't get it and you owe it. And if you don't pay it, we're going to take everything. And then after that, we can't reach them. And so it's like, what the hell, man? I mean, you try to even comply with the tax bill, and then they just say we never got it. I mean, talk about a scam, but how would you even go about dealing with that?
Well, it's either fraud or a species of fraud. And yeah, you can sue the government for fraud. It's a tort, but the government has a duty to collect the tax and correctly account for it. So if you show that you paid and the bank can confirm the payment, then the government has a big problem, and it's within the purview of the Inspector General's office for the United States. And I think if you recall, Trump just got rid of 22 of them because they probably weren't doing the job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably have a pretty good administration right now where if you were to explain the facts to the Inspector General's office and you tell the IG's office to investigate this for some wrongdoing, right? Public funds, you fulfilled your complete duty. The government failed in fulfilling its duty. So the IG's office needs to investigate it and maybe someone needs to go to jail. That's what I would do is I would express a complaint to the IG's office.
That's a really good piece of advice. I'll talk to you after the show. Maybe we can get your help on it. But I've had numerous cases, Todd, where we've paid money to the IRS. They have then come back and said, well, at first they would say, this is a different case. They would say, we got your money. And then like 4 months later, they would say, no, we didn't. And then a few months later, oh, yes, we did, but you're off by $1,200. And so you got to pay us the $1,200, but there's penalties on the $1,200. On and on. I mean, It's like they're just rolling dice.
So here's what you do in those cases where you see that happening. Like sometimes I've had a court reporting service take the transcript of a stupid audit, just like you would in court, because I knew these idiots what they're going to do next. So I would use the transcript against them and get my client out of that situation. What I would do in your case is in the future, I would literally have a settlement conference like you have for real estate transactions, where there's a third-party settlement officer like an escrow agent, where he settles the funds and the money goes to the escrow agent and it's done. IRS says, yes, the money's escrow says, here it is. And now there's a third party verification of the payment and settlement.
Mm.
That's what you have to do apparently.
Yeah. And we're not even being audited. This isn't even an audit. This is just us trying to pay the IRS and they can't even get that right.
They're fishing. They're just.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's
how many other people are they doing this that can't even, they're making monthly payments,
Exactly.
and yeah.
Exactly.
Well, let's go back to ground zero when we got our first 1040 when we were snot-nosed in 17 or 18, right? And all the adults were saying, welcome to being an adult. You got to pay taxes, and you file your taxes. Now, if we never would have done that from the get-go, would we have ever been obligated to pay taxes, John?
The IRS would never care, no matter how many W-2s and 1099s you received in your entire life. The IRS would not care. You would never be audited. You wouldn't even be on the mailing list for audits.
What would happen when you then go to an employer or you want to go get a home and they say, we want to see your tax returns?
Okay, so let's say a bank. So the employer is going to withhold, and you're not going to get that. You're not going to get a refund if you're willing to deal with that. So you're not filing a 1040. So you're just not going to get a refund. The bank needs to show regular income. And one way they do it is by asking for a tax return. And I think also they're doing it to verify that you're filing tax returns. That's part of the system.
Yeah.
But what you can do is provide the bank with an audit. I'm sorry, not an audit, but a balance sheet with an income statement that's prepared by a third party, like an accounting firm. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to use an actual 1040 and prepare your income statement with that 1040, but don't sign it. Just write in the signature block that it's been, this file copy, something like that, copy. That should be enough for the bank to do its underwriting.
Okay. And that's not unlawful? Falsely?
Of course not. That's not false.
You're not signing it.
Right, you're not signing it, but make sure that the numbers are accurate so it matches with your bank statements. You know, I mean, obviously you're not going to lie on that, but use the 1040 for the balance sheet statement because you're dealing with people that expect that.
Right.
So you don't need one, but a 1040 is a convenient balance sheet format.
Yeah, no. And when I first learned that we would have never been obligated, why would we have not been obligated to?
Because you're not obligated. There's no legal duty. Gosh, people just, heads heads when they hear this. There's no legal duty to file a tax return.
Except when in the District of Columbia is what I've heard.
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it depends on your citizenship and your residency. I just think that the person who's required to file as it states in the statutes is the person who files. Now, I made this conclusion. This conclusion works for every case I've ever tried. And I made this conclusion after a few years of watching the IRS operate. And then I finally realized it's the tax return that's actually doing all this. Now, if you don't file, the IRS will actually have to file a return for you. It's called a substitute for return. And that starts the software into the automated collection system. So a tax return is what begins everything, not the assessment. This is the problem with our system. In fact, I did a video on this a few weeks back where I was saying what we need to do is go into the Federal Register and petition the IRS to come up with regulations that require it to create an assessment for everybody, which it kind of does now, but it's not so specific. But if we had regulations for that, it would make it so much easier to show where there's a tax liability. But right now, it's a Wild West. They could do whatever they want.
Right.
Yeah.
I recently had a consultation with a gentleman from one of the big four, Price Waterhouse, who said, yeah, I can never speak about these UNAs to our clients, but he goes, I get it. I understand. and he said that what people don't understand is what gets audited is what's been self-reported, what's been filed, right?
Right.
And
it really does.
To the audience, Todd will explain UNAs in the after party.
Right.
In case, like, if you just popped in, you're like, what's a UNA?
Yeah,
well,
sorry, everybody.
It's an unincorporated nonprofit association. And they've become extremely popular among certain informed people, but they're completely unknown by mainstream accountants.
Yes.
Yeah. This is a way to move financial risk out of your estate. So you can retitle the financial risk or you can retitle it and move it out of your estate. The UNA does that as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But it seems like, John, you have like a whole like chest full of tools to use here. Just the examples you've given us today.
Absolutely.
You have a number of tools and tactics to help people through almost any kind of problem, whether it's with the IRS or business or cash flow or anything. I mean, it is much of that. And you know what's related, which seems like it's not related, but it's family court. Really? How the heck can I get in family court when my expertise is on taxes? It's not taxes, it's financial risk. And I'll just tell you for the sake of this conversation, I think it's quite interesting. Family court is not about your family. It's about liquidating the breadwinner in your household, liquidating, disposing of all the property so all the minions can get paid from your estate. This is very wrong. It's not serving the families at all. And I could tell you it's wrong of 20 different ways. Wow. But so I look at family court proceedings. This is what they really are, guys. Family court is nothing but an involuntary receivership. You are being run through a bankruptcy proceeding. Make no mistake. This is not family court. They say it's family. It's not. It's an involuntary receivership. And I'll tell you, some of the judges reveal this by appointing receivers. They actually have the audacity to appoint a receiver where there's no creditors. Wait a minute. Wait, back up a second. Who ends up in family court? People wanting divorce. So just divorce courts.
divorce court, child custody requests,
I see.
things of this nature. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're saying it's essentially a bankruptcy or receivership proceeding.
It is. It is a receivership. So my area is financial risk. And so I look at it for what it is. It's a receivership without all the elements of a receivership. It's fraud. It's total fraud. Now there's more to it than that. So I get into that, but also I get into the issue of, people are complaining about their data being collected, biometric data, right? Biographical data. And I just tell them, what's the big deal? You know who's collecting it. Go ahead and put a lien on your data. It's your property.
How do you do that? You told me that earlier today, and I'm like, how do you about doing it?
If you can describe something that has value, you can sell it or you can encumber it with a lien interest, right? Just like a mortgage. You can describe your real estate, you can put a lien on it. If I can describe my intellectual property, like if I wrote a song, I can describe the property, right? Therefore, I can license out its use. I can impose terms on its publication, right?
Yep.
Well, what is your biometric data? It identifies you specifically. For example, your SSN, nobody cares about. But your SSN and date of birth and name, that's different.
Mm-hmm.
That's specific to you, and it has value. How do we know this? Google's collecting it. Why would Google collect it? Among other places, right? So it has value. Let's just say it has value by virtue of how everyone else is using it. Therefore, if I define it, it's coming from me. I have exclusive control over it. I have a right to put a lien on its use and collection and storage. That's what we do. So just like you would have a mortgage on some real estate, we write a security agreement and file it right next to the mortgages. It's a security agreement. It's a license term. Just like if you wrote a song, you can license out its publication. We do the same thing for biometric data. So again, it has to do with financial risk. So imagine if people were just doing this. What does that look like for the big corporations that are collecting your data for free right now?
Is there any kind of a template or anything that somebody could access and use? Because I would do that in a heartbeat if I knew what to do and where to send it.
Yeah.
And I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I have a whole course. Of course I do. I have a whole system that tells you how to do all this, all the, the forms, documents, the procedure.
Talk to us about your course. Tell us about your course.
I look at who's so bold to collect your data, right? Google and Plaid and all these, organizations, even the DMV, even the IRS. I mean, I don't care about, but I'm just saying, anybody who's collecting your data, you have a right to control how it's disseminated. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to wait for your state to come up with some brilliant act of legislation and then not have a private right of action under that legislation. Why not just make your own agreement with the use of your property? So if Google collects your data, then Google becomes the debtor because you filed a lien on the collection of the data. So as long as Google has your data, it's your debtor. It owes you money or whatever else. Now, here's another thing, like the Ring cameras. The Ring cameras will waive all your rights so quickly. You have no rights whatsoever if you're using a Ring camera or if your neighbor has a Ring camera. But you can cure that with a lien on your data.
Wow. We all need to figure out how to do this, everyone.
Wait. So I'm not quite seeing where this ends up. So if you put a lien on your own data, what does that do for you?
It costs money. It costs money to acquire your data. It costs money more than the company getting it is expecting.
So what, then you send out invoices to all these tech companies?
You could do that. My strategy on that is if I want more people to do this, right? So when there's, let's say, tens of thousands of people doing this, it's going to start getting attention because it's going to show up on the balance sheet. When you disclose it to the SEC and your investors and your insurance carriers looking at this, and there's this growing liability of people making claims on the data you're collecting that you have, admittedly. Now what? You owe all these people. Now these are all your creditors. And there's large numbers of them. So I think if we want any rights on our privacy, this is one way to get them without complaining and being a bunch of whiners. It's just my response to that.
Well, I'm just thinking that these tech companies would just say, they'd just ignore it, wouldn't they?
Of course they would, up to a point. I think the liability would be too great at some point. Right now they will. With only a few $1,000s out there, who cares? But I mean, at some point, it's going to be worth something to them.
But I'm sorry, Tom, one more thing, but if I'm setting the terms of the value of my biometric data, I could say Google owes me $1 billion.
You could certainly do that. I don't know if there's any limits on that. Now, someone might have the argument that, is it really worth that much? and there might be some standard. I looked into all that. But what I caution people is make it a reasonable amount. Like, what's it really worth? $8 a year? I just made up a number. Just something, because at some point, if people were to work together, we could consolidate all these receivables, all these claims into a single balance sheet. And maybe we could do something. For example, we can make the companies invest in the company that's holding all these liens. I mean, there's all kinds of things I'm thinking. I don't care about the $8 a year. I mean, but realistically, people should be filing 40 or 50 of these a year.
See, but to do that, we need an easy button. We need one website where people can go to, and it's so self-explanatory, and they don't have to think too hard, and they just enter their information and they hit publish, and boom, on their behalf, it goes to 50 different companies. And then if it's that easy, and we can evangelize this to anybody who can fog a mirror, then you're talking about getting some real positive momentum behind it, I think.
I may do that. I may actually do that because, I know how that would work. We could actually do it like that. Easy button.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, with AI coding now, you can use AI to write code very easily. You can launch a platform that would do all that and probably only take you a day to build it.
We could do that.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Send them out to Apple. Apple's got a lot of cash.
Yeah, that may be coming. I mean, we're just basically like right now, people are getting discounts, right, for giving up their data, their phone number, things like that at the grocery store. And people just say, okay, fine, whatever. They're not even putting terms on their data. They don't even know how valuable that data is.
Right.
But we could make the terms how we want.
I love that. I really want. Let's do that, guys. I mean, let's figure this out. That would be a game changer, I think.
Yeah, we can have more of these discussions. I mean, the tax stuff is pretty simple, straightforward.
Yeah.
We can deal with that one pretty easily. I mean, it's been like 30 something years I've been doing it, almost 33 years now. And even got the IRS in on the game so they could say, yep, you're right.
I love that.
No one's done that. I'm the only one that's done that. And I'm not even an accountant.
See, what I think is the most interesting part of this is where your skill set is going to be very useful as the Western financial system collapses.
Well, that's interesting because, you got crypto sopping up all the inflation. Where is that taking us? I mean, it's going to be interesting, but I think that's the purpose. And
you've got Trump's stablecoin operation. You have maybe gold revaluation being considered from the Treasury and the Fed. And then, we've got this insane debt, $1 trillion every 75 days being added to the 37 plus trillion. Clearly the music stops at some point. And when it does, everybody's going to be scrambling to move their shit to the right place.
Let me give you guys a bit of an insight.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of different people in different countries, and even I'm looking at some people possibly in Dubai. And so that's a kind of a telltale as to what's going on. Now, there may be some people here in the States, but I find more people in UAE that are dealing with, and I'm not making this up, hundreds of millions of dollars of cash at a single time that desperately want Bitcoin for it. And their problem is literally going to the warehouse where they have it in the bank's custody, no less. It's already vetted funds and carting it off in exchange for a thumb drive. This is going on right now. You have these royal families that are several hundred years old that are desperately wanting to get, $100 billion at a time out of dollars.
Hey, Todd, if your problem today is that you need a wheelbarrow for your cash stash, it's a pretty good problem to have.
Yeah.
You need a forklift.
But these guys are so desperate. It's like on fire for them, So there's this big move worldwide to get out of the dollar into the cryptos. And so the government wants this because it's going to save the dollar, I guess. It won't be the dollar, but it'll be the dollar,
Yeah,
it's
dollar. Genius, guys. It's genius. Genius Act.
Yes. The Genius Act, right.
Okay, wow. All right. Well, Todd, we're coming up on the hour pretty soon here. Oh, all right. We're already there. I can't believe it. Todd, you have a final question for our guest today? I mean, this is a whirlwind. I'm going to have to think about all this.
I know. No, I just, I was talking to you earlier today, John, talking about how we can integrate what you're working on and the UNAs and such. And what has been kind of perplexing for me to help people are people who have C Corps and S Corps. The UNAs really aren't that great for those. And you educated me on a wonderful strategy that can encompass both an LLC creation that ties into the C Corps that then connects with a UNA. It was brilliant. So I want to encourage anybody who's listening, when I have previously talked about how UNAs, if you're an LLC person, we're good. We should talk. Yeah. But man, you really opened my eyes on the S Corp and the C Corp. And I'm just admirable about the fact that you don't take shit from anyone, and nobody is your ultimate source of authority until you do your own research. And I really encourage everyone. Matter of fact, you even created the John J. Singleton AI, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yes, it's not
think about that.
So it's not released yet, but I wanted to make it aware. It's got all my research from 33 years. It does things the way I do. So if a client sends documents to review, it's just like I reviewed it. You send it to my AI, it'll analyze it just like me, and it will even have, as I like to say, my smart-ass attitude.
Yeah. Is that something that I think would be great if you fed Enoch that into the... What do you think?
Well, we can train Enoch on any material, but I think that how this is a special focus for John's company is it's got a very specific use case to review documents. Right. So it's probably better as a standalone. Although, of course, we always welcome contributions. But by the way, Todd, I was thinking the dollar is so dead that the U.S. Treasury is going to be structured as a C Corps pretty soon. So we should be ready for that moment, because it's going to come fast and furious, I think. So, John, let me give out your website. John J. Singleton here, aceofcoins.com is the website. And as you heard, you can engage John J. with, to help solve your interesting problems, and to do it legally and also creatively, whether it's IRS or bankruptcies or crypto or gold or silver. You need to move things around. You need to minimize your tax burden legally, etc. Check out aceofcoins.com. Is there anything else you want to add, John, before we wrap this up?
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the interview. Look forward to more.
Yeah, we always enjoy having you on. You're just a joy to talk with, and we love your attitude. We love your solutions, and I think you're going to be very busy in the coming year.
I look forward to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, John. Just great to have you on. And Todd, we'll be back after this break with the after party, which may or may not go off the rails today. We will see. So stay with us.
All right. Thanks, John.
Thanks, guys.
Join the official discussion channel for this show on Telegram at t.me/decentralizedtv, where you can ask questions or offer suggestions of who we should interview next. Also be sure to subscribe to the email newsletter on decentralized.tv, where you'll be alerted about 1 day in advance of each new upcoming episode, before it gets published. On decentralized.tv, you'll also find links to our video channels and social media channels across all platforms, including Brighteon, Rumble, BitChute, Twitter, Truth Social, and more. Check it all out at decentralized.tv. All right, welcome back. This is the after party segment. I hope you all enjoyed that interview. Todd, as always, John was your recommendation. Even the initial interview, but he's so great. He's so knowledgeable. And of course, his attitude is highly welcomed here on the show.
It's not only welcomed, it's infectious, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I will tell you, John J. Singleton was my initial antidote to fear. He planted the seed in me, why not me, when I was wanting to do battle with Costco over this mask mandate, right? They fired me as a customer because I wouldn't bend the knee. And I'll never forget his initial words when we talked. He said, you have to have the right kind of internal middle finger to put that line in the sand and say, no, you move. That's what I love about him. And I hope everybody picked up on that that vibe, and that you are equally enthused that you can make a difference. One person can make a difference out there.
I'm just thinking of a book title that would be really great called Awaken Your Internal Middle Finger.
That would be great. That would be great.
And you can imagine what the book cover would look like.
Oh my. Would you please create that book cover for us?
Actually, you know what? I'm going to, because I'm going to do it with the help of AI, obviously, our own AI engine. So how about this? Inspired by John J. Singleton, the first Enoch AI engine generated book called Awaken Your Internal Middle Finger.
Love it, because as people know in our private Telegram group, I use that all the time.
Yeah. The engine, it's
well, not just the engine. I'm talking about the term internal middle finger.
oh, okay, both.
I never let that go.
Well, that's absolutely perfect, and we have a lot of practice of invoking the internal middle finger. And we've gotten quite good at it to the point where we've been banned everywhere on all the platforms. We still give them the middle finger by then building platforms that compete with their platforms.
Right.
Actually, success is the best middle finger of all.
Yep, it's the ultimate. That's right.
And here we have a show for over 2 years. We're giving the middle finger to the establishment every single episode.
Every week we do. But when I noted that it was my initial antidote to fear, what I really want people to hone in on that, Mike, because fear is what they use to control us.
Yeah.
And their evokement of fear is like the little green, the man behind the curtain. It is Wizard of Oz stuff, right? And so if you just release yourself from walking around in fear and stop worrying about the boogeyman, coming to get you and audit you and all of this. And man, when I learned, Mike, that the 87,000 faux people, auditors that they hired with guns, remember, they even wanted to plant the scary that they were going to arm them. And then when I learned it was all bullshit, it just hit me. I thought, man, it is the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the little man behind the green curtain. That's all they have out there. So break your own spell of fear and exercise your internal middle finger. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good legendary advice on a daily basis. Okay, and of course, one of the ways that people can, exercise their internal middle finger, I think my internal middle finger has been exercised so much it has a neck like Hulk Hogan. My hand probably looks distorted at this point, but you have a solution for people. We mentioned it earlier, the UNA. Please tell us about the UNA while I bring up your website, my575e.com.
Sure. Everyone, you've heard often Nelson Rockefeller coined the phrase, own nothing, control everything. And they donate their entire fortunes to foundations, different entities. But what you don't know is that they donate them to entities that they control. So that's why when he said control or own nothing, control everything, this is what he was talking about. Now, there is this little known entity, a California established unincorporated nonprofit association that I help people acquire with my good friend and partner, Dennis Gray, who actually lives in California and creates these and establishes them on our behalf. And if you go to my575e.com, I try to make it as easy as possible for people to, for free, be able to just learn about it. I have a 11-page PDF that talks about the 32 positive attributes of operating your own UNA. And then there's a 90-minute video of me interviewing Dennis talking about those attributes, and it's fascinating. And over the last, we're approaching now, Mike, just in 2 years, almost 400 people who have acquired their UNAs, and we have a private Telegram group where all the support happens, and it has evolved to be such an amazing community of like-minded, smart people that are all, exercising it's not an internal middle finger, but they have allowed themselves to consider the possibilities of what might happen if they keep more of what they earn as a W-2 earner, a 1099 earner, if they operate an LLC, what positive benefits might you be able to exact out of that? If you own property, if you own crypto, if you have children, it's just an amazing entity. And all I do is encourage people to teach themselves by going to the website. And look, if you have any questions, I make it real easy just to have a private consultation with me. And it is $150. And I don't apologize for that, Mike, because I give it back to people. If they move forward with the UNA, they just take it off the top. But if I don't charge anything, people don't show up, because for a while I didn't, and 7 out of 10 people didn't show up. So it is changing lives. Matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, there was a woman in the group who somebody else came in and said, well, it sounded too good to be true. And she said, honey, that's what I thought until it changed my life.
Well, there you go. Okay, My575E is the website. And as I mentioned before, the UNA material that you and Dennis Gray have provided, that's gone into the training of Enoch, which is our free AI engine. And it's still about 2 weeks out before that material is available. It's taken a little longer than we had planned, but it's almost there. And you can go to Brighteon.ai and you can use the Enoch AI engine. It's free of charge. And you can ask Enoch anything. You ask it about honest money, ask it about gold, but it's especially well-trained on nutrition and vaccine dangers, for example, natural health, off-grid living, survival and preparedness, honest money, even privacy crypto. It knows all about privacy crypto, mostly because of our interviews. So this engine bypasses censorship. Oh, go ahead, Todd.
It bypasses censorship, and it is an antidote to I always joke about it, my Lord and Savior ChatGPT, right? Because when people ask query questions in there, they're not getting the right answers, certainly not regarding UNAs. And it drives me nuts, but it is what it is. So I am really grateful that you are training it properly, Mike. But people should get used. It's my go-to. It's my absolute go-to every day when I'm researching anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And it beats Chat-Tard GPT, that we call it, because ChatGPT and Grok are all completely retarded on the questions that should be very simple to answer. In fact, even a 5-year-old can answer a lot of questions better than ChatGPT, like how many genders are there? Can a boy become a girl?
Right.
ChatGPT gets it wrong.
But it's amazing how people will research ChatGPT and come with the answer and then copy paste a war of words and send it to me, and basically like, gotcha, you didn't even do any
thinking.
and I'm like, if you want to talk about it, you can book a consultation. I'll be happy to talk about it with you, but that's it. And everybody out there, please know that I do not answer in-depth questions for obvious reasons related to these entities and you. It's so there you go, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So anyway, in terms of how you can help support the show, folks, and support what I do, go to healthrangerstore.com. And that is our amazing store of laboratory tested, almost all certified organic foods, superfoods, nutritional supplements. Here we have personal care, preparedness, supplements, home care, all kinds of goodies. And most of them we formulated and we manufacture ourselves. Sometimes we have third parties make them for us, but these don't have any synthetic fragrances and artificial colors, fillers, any garbage like that. So you want high quality, high end lab tested supplements that can help protect your neurology and your health and your longevity so that you can live long enough to enjoy all the money that you're saving by following Todd's advice on the UNAs. Well, don't you want to be around to enjoy the money that you're not having confiscated from you? Yeah. So absolutely. Shop with us at healthrangerstore.com.
Yeah, keep more of what you earn, and you can afford to install a food forest. You can afford to acquire clean food for you and your family. It's all of this goes together, Mike.
Well, 100%. And lastly, I want to encourage our audience to check out all the other episodes of Decentralized TV.
Right.
Because we've done, 2+ years of this show, and every episode has something of value. I mean, yeah.
I was being self-effacing on a consultation I had this week, saying, kind of talking about our after parties, about like, well, because somebody was talking about they don't miss a show or whatever, and I said, well, you could probably do without the after party. She said, no, I'm addicted to the after party.
Well, gosh, that feels like a lot of pressure. Like we have to really do something fun in the after party, But my dog's sleeping. I don't want to wake him up because dogs and cables, they don't mix very well.
Yeah.
It's like dogs have no knowledge of extension cords.
But people can go back to one of our previous episodes and see your dog attack DTV Man. So,
that's
the
true.
content's there, Mike.
Well, and don't forget where we're going with this. Our new studio is going to be open in the next 60 days, probably. And we're going to acquire some robots, some actual humanoid robots and some dog bots. And it's going to be interesting to see what my dog does about that. I'm sure he'll go into attack mode instantly. But we're gonna find a humanoid robot that we can dress up like DTV Man. So we used to have a mannequin here on the table. Yeah, actually, he's still sitting over there. One of his arms got ripped, torn off by our dog. But we're gonna have a walking DTV Robo Man in the near future. So.
And we are going to query him. We're going to ask him what he thinks about certain subjects and topics, and we'll see what he has to say. Because, right?
Unless we can sort of overwrite his memory, I'm not going to have high expectations.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's got a small LLM in his head, it's probably some kind of mainstream engine, like a 7 billion model that's not very good.
It would probably be a liberal. Yep, that's right.
Can you imagine? Oh my God, DTV Man became a libtard. And he has opposable thumbs. That could be dangerous.
Dangerous.
Yeah. All right. We might have to unleash Rhodey on him. We'll see how that goes. All right. Well, I think that's it for today's show, Todd. So thank you once again for the great guest recommendation and for your time and for being here. It's always fun.
All right, Mike. Have a great weekend. See you, everybody.
Okay. Take care, everyone. And remember, you can check out all the other shows at decentralized.tv. Take care.
Cheers.
All right, checking gold prices today. And this is the first week of October, and we're almost at $4,000 an ounce. I've got on my screen here, $39.84. Gold is rising very rapidly. And also silver prices, although a little bit more flat today, they're very close to $48. Silver's probably going to cross 50 pretty soon. Now, don't take this as financial advice. Do your own research, but the trend is undeniable. Gold and silver are exploding in terms of dollar denomination because, of course, the value of the dollar is sinking. Dollars are being destroyed by money printing and debt spending, while gold and silver are doing their job by preserving wealth. And of course, if you want to preserve your wealth, you need to get more gold and silver. We've partnered with the Battalion Metals company. We've been working with them for years, actually. This is what used to be Treasure Island, and they launched this new online presence with new improved services. It's called Battalion Metals. You can reach them at metalswithmike.com. It takes you straight to Battalion Metals, and there you can shop for gold and silver coins from all the trusted mints. No shenanigans, no bait and switch, not trying to sell you weird, like 3-ounce numismatics that nobody wants or other weird, odd coins. There's none of that garbage. This is a trustworthy, family-run business in precious metals that's been around literally for generations. They have discreet, insured delivery and vaulting services, including IRA vaulting. And seriously, check them out. Check out their prices. You can see their prices online in real time, so you can see that they're not playing, rip-off games or anything like that. Honest pricing, honest products. Now, if you use discount code RANGER, if you place any order with them for physical delivery, use RANGER, they will waive the shipping insurance fee. And that saves you something. It's not a huge part of every sale, but every little bit counts. It helps you maximize the amount of metal you actually get. And I believe it's critical right now to have physical gold and silver in your hands. As the dollar collapses and as we face the possibility of a banking system collapse and even ultimately a U.S. empire collapse that some people are predicting, something like the way the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. Well, if that happens, the dollar is toast. And then the value that you'll have left is either what you have in metals, what you have in property, what you have in hard assets. And at that point, you may want to consider also gold backs, which are these. Here's a stack of gold backs. I keep these on my desk because I hand them out to people. I give them to guests and other people. Each one of these right now is 1/1000th of an ounce of physical gold inside the gold back. And these are available in different denominations with larger amounts of gold in them. So the gold is actually in the gold back, and then these allow you to spend gold like cash. And people love them at farmers markets and certain merchants across different states. And more states are opening up for gold backs, and more states are recognizing gold and silver as legal tender as well. You know, not necessarily in this form, but in any form, just that gold and silver ounces are recognized as legal tender in many, many states, and more states are coming. So if you want to get gold backs, go to our website, verifiedgoldbacks.com, where we explain what gold backs are, and I share my lab testing results because we actually melted these down using a kiln, and we did different types of tests. There's the melting test. There's the acid stone test for gold purity, and we weighed them on an analytical balance in our lab to look at the actual gold mass. And then this is our ICP-MS for the gold atomic analysis. And then at the end, we produce this chart that you can see here. If you scroll down, there it is. This is the recovery chart. So out of gold backs, how much was expected in terms of gold mass? Here's how much we recovered. So the least amount we recovered was about 102%, and the highest amount was 107%. That was out of the five gold back units. So you're actually getting slightly more than the promised amount of gold in the gold backs. And this is critical because we have independently confirmed that these actually do contain the gold that they claim to contain. Otherwise, obviously, we wouldn't be promoting them. So you can order these from verifiedgoldbacks.com. Just click this button right here. You see this? Click this to order gold backs. And as gold prices go up, gold backs also go up in value right along with gold. So when I first started mentioning gold backs, they were $3 and something per gold back, and now they're over $7 per gold back. So those of you who already purchased gold backs, you've probably seen them double in value, if not more, depending on when you purchase them. So those are the two options we have available for you. We have Battalion Metals that you can reach via metalswithmike.com for gold and silver coins that are recognized coins from recognized mints, or gold backs from verifiedgoldbacks.com that you can allow you to spend gold like cash. So those are the options we have available for you. And just, again, don't take this as financial advice. Check with your own financial advisors, do your own research, make your own decisions. But at the end of the day, the people who listen to this and who got gold in the last couple of years or silver, they have seen the value of that just skyrocket in terms of dollar denominations. In fact, gold was only around, just under $2,000 in 2022. And now it's about $4,000. So it's doubled in about 3 years, or maybe a little bit over 3 years. That is significant. That is outperforming almost all of the stock market indexes and stock market funds and so on without the risk of stock market loss. Because when you have gold and silver in your hands, then there's no counterparty risk. You have it in your possession. You hold it, you own it, and it can't vanish overnight if a bank fails, or if a currency fails, or if a government fails. Gold and silver will outlast the dollar. They will outlast the United States government. They will outlast the Treasury and the Federal Reserve. Mark my words. Gold's mentioned in the Bible. It's been around since the dawn of human civilization, and it will still be here after this whole system collapses if it does. So you want real value that maintains that value? Gold and silver is your answer. Again, metalswithmike.com, and use discount code RANGER to have the shipping insurance waived off of your order. So thank you for supporting us, and thank you for supporting yourself so that you'll have some assets when, when this economic storm blows through. It's going to be something interesting, that's for sure. Thanks for watching. I'm Mike Adams of Brighteon.com and naturalnews.com. Take care.